Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live show for Hide by Kirsten White. I feel like, from what I've seen so far, we'll get into it all, but I feel like this is the most divisive book we've had so far, and also the book that the most people are waiting for us to tell them if they should read it. So like I feel like I've had the most amount of people be like, I'm just gonna wait. And I think that's understandable because this for me was a $36 book. And for a 200-page experience, it's a big investment. So hopefully in this first spoiler-free section, we will be able to guide you a little bit just with our original star rating and maybe one sentence to sum up our thoughts if the people who haven't read it yet can be convinced to pick it up or not. That's what I'm hoping. If you guys want to give a little, I don't know, a Ferris wheel emoji in the chat if you've read it. We'll get into ratings in a second. And then maybe a skull if you haven't read it or you DNF'd it or you're waiting for us to guide you. So everybody's links are down below if you want to check out everybody's channel, but I'm going to have everybody here introduce themselves. I just realized I don't have your names on, so hopefully while you're talking, I'll pop that back on. If everybody wants to introduce themselves, just their channel, anything they want to say about their channel. I would love to hear any recent or just in general favorite thrillers or horror books of yours so people can gauge like what you're up to on your channel. They want to check you out. That sounds like it's a pitch. Like, tell me about yourself so people can go
choose your fighter.
That's a lot of pressure. That's what I would love to hear from you. And then we're going to end it. And Ashley is going to pitch the book to us, the synopsis, and give us the initial thing. So, Allie.
All right. Well, hello. I'm Allie from Hardback Hoarder. I also am a Twitch streamer on Twitch under the name With Malice. I'm live there 3 times a week. I read a total random variety of genres. I feel like you never know what you're going to get in my wrap-up. But a recent favorite was Tinfoil Butterfly, which Kayla recommended.
I love that.
And it was fantastic. But I think one of my probably my all-time favorites is Butterfly Garden. A bit of a theme going on there. The Last Final Girl. Also Friday Black, a collection of stories, and then Suffer the Children will probably be some of my favorites.
Oh, I didn't know Friday Black was considered like thriller.
It's yes, very dystopian horror-esque. It's much like Black Mirror.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, Ashley.
Hey everyone, I am Ashley. My channel is Ashley's Little Library. I read mostly spooky stuff, so thrillers and horror, but sometimes I throw in romance if TikTok is telling me to read it, and then I hate it, and then people get mad at me. So that's kind of the vibes over on my channel. Favorite thriller and horror recently, I really like Eric LaRocca's books for horror stuff. Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke is still my favorite, but I really like all of them that I've read so far. And for thrillers, I really like cheesy, ridiculous, over-the-top type thrillers. So hint, hint, wink, wink. I really have liked The Island by Adrienne McKenty recently. I really liked Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. Just fun vibes like that.
Oh, interesting. I'm picking up Reckless Girls soon, so I've only heard bad things about it, so that's encouraging.
Hi everybody, I'm Bear. My channel is primarily horror, but I do read a lot of Indigenous authors and queer lit. Recent favorite horrors would probably be Brother by Anya Allborn, Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, and The Girls Are Never Gone. I can't remember the author of that one, but that one's like a YA paranormal horror. It's really good.
Oh, cool. I'm writing down Brother.
It's so good, Kayla.
For some reason, those like one-word titles really get me. I'm reading a book called Nana soon, and I just feel like that's grabbing my attention. Okay, Ashley, do you want to tell us what Hide is about? Give us a little pitch, either in your own words or you can just read whatever.
I'll just make something up on the fly. Hide is an amusement park thriller / horror. So there are 14 different contestants who get the opportunity to go to this abandoned amusement park and play in this hide and seek competition and whoever wins is going to get like $50,000 or some amount of money. Everyone really wants the money, so it's an exciting time for them, kind of like Hunger Games vibes in that situation. And quickly things become more sinister in the competition. And the main character you're following, her name is Mac, and she has an interesting past that makes her really good at hiding, which is who you're mostly following through the story.
Love it. Perfect synopsis. Oh my gosh. I think the chat's already like ready to get into it. So I love it. Okay. As always, I don't know anyone's star rating, which makes me very excited. I hope and I think that there is a whole range of ratings here, which is good for me because I want everybody to feel represented in the comments, the haters and lovers. So can I hear everybody's star rating and like a 1-sentence kind of summary of why you gave it that rating without any spoilers? And then immediately after, we'll get fully into it. Allie?
Well, I rated it a 4.5 stars.
I knew it. I knew you loved it. I felt it in my soul.
Yes, and I was like, Kayla and I are either going to agree or totally disagree on this. I just know it. But for me, I gave it that rating because I treated this book originally as a game within itself when I was reading it, but ended up being captivated by the palpable rage that I felt and felt like I could relate to within the book.
Love it. All right, Ashley.
I gave it a 3-star because I really like survival thrillers and horror. I like that trope, but this was one of the more average ones that I have ever read that does that trope.
Fair.
I gave it 1 star.
Oh!
And the reason why, it's like to compare the flatness of this book to cardboard is an insult to cardboard. I have never read something as underdeveloped as this. And that includes like all the shitty fan fictions that I read as a child. Like, I hated it.
Okay. And I gave it a 2. So I was right. We've got all the ratings. I'm so glad. I love it. My sentence is, I think with all of the trauma and horrors that we're experiencing in real life, at least we had a fast-paced experience to get through. But unfortunately, I have been more entertained by watching paint dry. That is my official review. I think we have more of a mix than I even thought, but I do think the 2-star is the most common thing that I'm seeing.
I feel like I'm going to fight for my life today. This live show.
You have got some support in the comments, and I love it. But yeah, the 2 stars are really, they're here. I don't see any 5s. Oh no, I see a couple. Listen, we've got a couple. So if you all want to share your fully spoiler thoughts, we're going to get into all of that now. While we give people time to leave, and this live show will always be here, so you can come back and watch this once you've read the book if you decided to, or you can just stay and hang out for the tea. But I want to hear your experience with Kiersten White first. What have you read from her before, and how does this compare? Because I have only read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, and I really enjoyed that. I read that because of Ashley, and I gave it 4.5 stars. So this was a really big surprise for me that it didn't go well. But what about you guys?
I think I've only read The Dark Descent, and then also she has the it's like the Vlad the Impaler retelling. Don't ask me what's called. And I Darken. So I think that's pretty much it. But this felt way different than I feel like her other writing. It felt more, and it's going to sound bad, but I mean, don't mean it in a bad way. Is it was more surface level than I feel like her other books are. Her other books felt very detailed in the setting and the time periods that they're framed.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I've also only read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, which was a 4 or 4.5 for me, and totally agree. They felt super different. I felt like she was trying to do something with more commentary in this or give it some depth, but didn't really work that way. And the writing style in itself, the whole tone of the book, everything was just completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I have never read anything by Kirsten White before. And judging by this, I don't think that I will. I thought I'm interested in The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, but like, I don't know, I'm kind of nervous now.
I forgot she wrote Anti-Darken. That was really like a booktube darling for the year it came out. I forgot that was by her. I saw it everywhere, and everybody, from what I remember, like really loved it. So maybe that'd be a good place for you to, if you wanted to give her another go, I guess.
It's a much more slow-paced book, which is interesting compared to this.
So I have no desire to slander this book as much as I want to talk about all the things that I hate about it so much. I also want to give the opportunity for people to like have such a good time and talk about the things that they really enjoyed. So my first question is going to be like, what did you like about it? Because unless you gave it 0 stars, there's got to be something that worked for you. Start with a little positivity. Allie, tell us everything you love about it. Start us on a good note.
So most of the time my ratings are based more so in enjoyment than I feel like a lot of people's are. So really I went into this just treating it like a game in and of itself. What I did was I tried to predict like which characters would go first, and I was annotating. I sent you all my annotations as I was doing it, and I made it just like a game in and of itself and was like trying to see who would go first. So that part of it I think was really fun. I like the setting. I love amusement parks. I love them. And I like that this one is like you get lost in it, because I have been lost in an amusement park before. Absolutely. So I really like that. I thought the pacing was great. I think what I most liked about it is that it was exaggerated and satirical at times. And I love satire. I love it. And this just was like cartoony, but in like the best way possible. And that it took these characters and made them over exaggerated. It was like millennials. These were millennials. I mean, these are the jobs that like millennials are after. They're creative jobs. There's content creators and whatnot. And these are the people that a lot of the older generations don't take seriously. So this was them, and it was giving them a more exaggerated appearance on the page, is what I felt like. I do think it also showcased social issues in a good way that made it seem like it really showcased how these social issues can appear invisible to people who are not directly affected by them in ways. So those were the things that I really liked. I mean, as I said, I had a blast reading this. I'm like hooting and hollering when people were dying. I'm like, yes, I got it right. And then there was like notes where I was like, oh man, I apparently don't know mystery thrillers at all. Didn't see this coming. And then other parts where I'm like, I know where this is going. So like, I had a blast reading it.
It's funny because like everything that you're saying that you liked, like I also can objectively see it. Like my thing that I liked about this book is that I think it was the exact book that it set out to be. It's not Kirsten White's fault that that's not what I want in a horror or in a thriller or in a paranormal story. Like she wanted a rapid fire elimination game. She wanted each chapter to be like an ambiguous death. She wanted, characters working through their trauma. She wanted a monster at the heart of the story. She wanted, the commentary on people sacrificing people they see below them for their own gain. And all of those things were successful to me. And she did everything that she wanted to do. I just did not have a good time. And it's just not the vibe that I'm looking for. But like, I can see that she did what she wanted. And so I'm happy for her.
In the nicest way possible.
Ashley, what did you like about it?
I just liked the idea of it mostly. I really like the setup. I like the game competition style. I really like you put a group of people in an isolated setting and they're getting picked off one by one and who's going to make it to the end. I know it's hard when there's that many characters to attach to them and get to know them. So that's why a lot of people don't like stories like this. But I think it's fun because you just, the first half of the book, you don't really care. And then you get more invested by the end. So I like that setup of it. And I liked the idea of Mac as a character too, her backstory and her coming into the competition. I don't think it was used to its full potential or done super well, but I did think her history was super interesting with the way she was coming into this game.
My favorite thing were the end pages. No, okay.
Same though.
So
This map is
I
beautiful.
think that I like the concepts around this book. Like I like the idea of doing a social commentary about school shootings, which is, if you read the acknowledgments, that was apparently the inspiration behind this. I like this kind of like Total Drama Island, Cabin in the Woods crossover situation. I feel like there were just too many threads. Like I liked all the threads separately, but they didn't make like a pretty blanket.
I dig it.
The only thing that upset me about the map is that the pavilion is not on the map. And I was like, where is this pavilion? Where are they located?
Oh wow, I didn't even think about that.
You're taking notes.
I
take
took
my
a lot
answer
of
back
notes.
then.
I guess getting into what we didn't like. This the one place that I struggle with people's enjoyment that I can't grasp is when people say like the atmosphere is so good and like the setting, because I didn't feel that at all. Like the map is so beautiful and I don't feel like we really got the descriptions of where they were and how far everything was from each other. And I don't know. I was looking for more in the amusement park. Like when I want to read an amusement park story, like I want a scene in a house of mirrors, you know, where you're accidentally running into yourself and then you see something in the reflection. Like I want someone accidentally crawling onto a roller coaster seat and it like accidentally goes down the track and that's how they die. Like I wanted more tense of a feeling in the amusement park itself and not just with like how the characters were interacting in the ambiguous, like, oh, this person just disappeared, we never saw them again. That's what I wanted more of. I also, somebody asked, if you guys have any other questions, I'd be happy to touch on those too in the comments. But as far as the characters acting young, I talked about this in my review, and I agree with the comments saying that it should have been YA, and they didn't act the age that they were meant to be. And for me, it's just like they seemed way too naive. And I understand that it was informed by like their trauma and their past experiences and all of that stuff. But it felt just like she had written teen characters and then someone was like, just make them adults. Like it didn't seem like there was that much thought put into how old they actually were and their life experiences. And it was more YA to me, not with the characters themselves, but with like the vibe of the book. So, you know, how there's like, you know, a girl experiencing her first kiss, which can totally happen as an adult, obviously, but it just felt more like a YA trope and something that teens could relate to. I would feel more comfortable recommending this to teens, but unfortunately it's $35 and I can't expect a 16-year-old to buy a $36 book. Like that's crazy. So to me, that's what it was. How there's like two characters who have the same name. And so they get described as like beautiful Ava and bald Ava. That's just a very YA thing. There's a couple other things too, but just like the general vibe felt like it could have been teens.
I think too, if you're doing an amusement park book, that does tend to be targeted towards a younger audience. But I think what really solidified it as more YA to me is throwing in the unnecessary romance into it. Like, yeah, the insta love aspect was the real punch, because otherwise I could have been sold that this was Gen Z millennial, like young 20s, just forging it in the world. But it was like there was tropes within the writing that made it YA for me.
Yeah, and again, like, that doesn't make it a bad book, right?
Yeah.
So
I didn't super feel like it was super YA when I was reading it. I know everyone was saying that too, so I think I was looking for it a lot and just didn't feel too overwhelmed. But I'm also used to reading these more like cheesier, ridiculous characters in thrillers, especially when they're just getting chopped off one by one. You're like, of course they have to be just dumb so that you don't care about them as they're falling off the line. But I still like see what everyone's saying about the YA aspects too, but that just wasn't one of the, I feel like if other people hadn't said that, I don't know if I would have even noticed that myself. And I read a lot of YA horror too, so I don't know.
So I think my thing with it is because like the YA that I read tends to feel like it should have been adult and they made them marketed as YA, kind of like a Six of Crows vibe. So for me, like in the YA books that I read, the teenagers act a lot older. And it's weird kind of to hear the flip side of it, where like, oh, these characters are acting like teenagers, because I'm like, that's not what teenagers act like in the books that I read. So I think it's just like an interesting like publishing. It's an issue with publishing, I think, and marketing.
Yeah. I think that was actually one of the things I had, is the things that I disliked, is that I don't think it was marketed correctly. Even in the synopsis, I honestly don't think it was marketed correctly. The only thing that kind of tipped me off is someone said it was like A Quiet Place. And that put it in a much better perspective going into it for me.
Makes sense. I think when something gets put into like a horror category and it's adult, I automatically just assume, and that's on me, that there's going to be like gruesome violence and gore and like extreme circumstances. And that's really what I wanted. Like, I wanted it to feel so tense, and I never really felt that. My other main thing I think that I didn't like is like, I'm just personally tired of reading a cult story without my consent. Like, I'm so tired of every book I read turning into like, oh, it's this generation long history and all of these family members are doing all this bad stuff and then their family members have to do it after them and everyone's stuck in this big cult. I'm so tired of it, and I keep reading it by accident and I hate it.
Well, this had double the cult in it as well. This is not only as we're talking about a cult, but then
Two
there's
surprise
a whole
cults.
Yeah, you got double whammy. Yeah.
Ashley, did you get to talk about everything you didn't like about it?
I think that was mostly it. Yeah.
Okay, also they said they were going to play a game of 2 truths and a lie, and that's like the only part I got excited about, and then they didn't actually play. I keep picking up books that are about games, and then there's no game. It makes me so sad.
Well, this didn't even feel like a game at times. The only time it felt really like a game is when they were pitted against each other. And then it was like, now we're really going somewhere. So, yeah, that was a little bit of a letdown, but it wasn't enough for me. But
okay, my next question, I want to know if you would watch an adaptation of this.
Absolutely, in a heartbeat.
I think I would too.
I feel like I would.
Well, so actually, I have written down that fans of Nerve might like this.
I wrote that down too.
Nerve, the book, don't bother. The movie, great.
And also, I was thinking, it's not really similar, but like Panic by Lauren Oliver. Mm-hmm. That's also like a book with a game, but the show, or is it a movie? I never really watched it, but it does something different with it and like makes it more interesting just because it's like a visual, obviously. I feel like this was just a big movie pitch. I felt in my heart that Kirsten White didn't actually care about writing a novel. She just wanted to pitch a movie and wanted it to just become an adaptation because that's how it felt, right? Like, especially at the end. My next question is, like, what was your favorite scene? And I think the only part I really liked about it was the final scene because it was just so cheesy with her like exploding out of the gate covered in green slime, having defeated or let the monster escape or whatever. Like, that was the most cinematic thing I've ever read in a bad way and in a good way. And I feel like this is 100% going to get adapted. I don't see how it couldn't because every single scene felt like it was written for the screen.
Well, you have things like Stranger Things living like in everyone's lives right now. So this is the time to pick up this as a movie as well. Like, now is the time. We're on the trend for the paranormal horror.
This could also be set like any time too.
Yeah.
They could easily make this. Actually, I don't even know if did they say the year it was, or did
the years are important due to the whole like we protected our children from the wars, blah 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 nonsense. But yeah, so the years
definitely present day at the point you're reading though, because there's the YouTuber and they have cell phones. And...
Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah. I think that it was set in like 2023 or 2024.
Yeah,
if I'm remembering,
I do think it's 23. And actually, today is the anniversary of the gate being created within the book.
How horrifying! They could definitely like, if they want to get on the Stranger Things thing, though, they could make it set in the 80s, no problem.
Yeah, I think it would still work a little in that time frame.
Okay, so what was your guys' favorite like scene? I put favorite scene and favorite character as like the same question, but maybe I should split it up. I just don't have a favorite character. I didn't care about anybody.
Not even Brandon. Himbo Brandon.
I tried to care, couldn't get there.
I mean, I think my favorite part, I just like the experience of it, honestly. Like, my favorite parts were just, I felt like I could be part of the game. And there, it was like, you're not allowed to bet and whatever on this. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to figure out who's going to die when. But there was a lot of quotes that I took. And actually, I do think her like end acknowledgements was one of the better parts, because that's how you kind of figure out her source of why she was writing this book. Because otherwise, you're probably just like, okay, well, this is like a cartoon horror. What is this? And when she talked about like her rage, I was like, okay, I get that. But there was one quote in particular that I feel like a lot of us here would really relate to. And I feel this so hard, but it was the influencer. She's so sick of trying to turn everything into an opportunity, trying to exploit every hobby, every interest, every talent, even her own fucking face and body, in a desperate attempt to make enough money. The last time they spoke, maybe a year ago, her father accused her of being lazy, of not working. But the truth is, like everyone her age, she knows she's always working. She's just not making a living doing any of it. And I was like, I feel that.
I do remember reading that and being like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I typically am very weary of books that have YouTuber characters and influencer characters. So like, I was glad we only got that character for a little bit, because if that was like the main character and I had to read about all of her feelings about like how hard it is to be an influencer, it would have been too much for me.
Yeah.
Okay, people's favorite words, Legrand, which makes sense. Like his story is kind of like the most important because it ties into, you know, the whole cult.
I would say that he's basically like the second main character as well. Sure. I did almost cry over Brandon. I did. Especially because it felt so wasted, damn it.
The one where he's like, you can all just come live in my house after this. You'll all come live with me, right? I was just like, Brandon, you're going to die so soon, aren't you?
I was like crossing out my guesses, and I'm like, anyway, Brandon's next.
I love that you read the book that way, that you were like predicting what was going to happen.
I just am so excited to look back on my notes, because I know that I'm like snarky to myself in my own notes. And I'm like, okay, Allie, you were being such a dumbass here. Like, why did you think this?
I was writing like a character map and just trying to keep all the characters straight the whole time. And I just have big crosses through the people who died. And then sometimes I have a little question mark that's like, but did they? Like, I don't know. Why didn't it tell us if they were actually dead?
Yeah.
So my favorite character was almost Brandon, because I love like a good cinnamon roll, self-sacrificing dude bro. But Linda, listen, I love like a pantsuit wearing type A chaotic bitch who is pissed off because no one else is doing their fucking job. And like, the whole time I was reading it, I was just like, this is Sandra Bullock. Like, I loved Linda. I was like, I get you, girl. Like, I'm not murdering people, but I get you. And she was just like a really fun person to read from, because I think that she's a villain, yes, but she's a villain who was raised in a cult. And it's kind of like a villain of circumstance. So I had fun reading her and being like, just lose it. Just snap, pull that bun out of your hair, take off that pantsuit, and just like start slashing them up. I had a lot of fun with Linda.
I do like the image of her like standing at the gate, like in her pantsuit, like with a gun, and just like, I'm gonna do it myself. I love that.
Do you think she died at the end?
I don't know. I'm really bad at remembering endings. I remember the vague thing that happens at the end of books and details. I'm like, it's gone. Next day.
I think she died.
I think she might die, but I think there's enough of them that it would still continue in a way.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think there's like the opportunity for a sequel, which I find horrifying.
Yeah.
I hope not.
I hope not.
I don't think there would be one.
Oh no, for sure. I don't think so either. But like,
she's got to get the movie first.
Yeah, I think if there's a movie, maybe.
Or
me.
we'd get a prequel or a prequel.
Oh, well, I would read a prequel. I would.
I would read a prequel if it was set in like the day the park closed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, where they have it open for everyone and the little girl goes missing because they say like,
Yeah.
oh, we opened the park so everyone can come in and the monster can just like eat people. I would read a prequel set for that.
Yeah. And you're just following like random people and their points of views of what's happening. Seek. I love that.
I want to know what scene was like most surprising to you, like what reveal worked for you. I can't remember. I knew that I was spoiled for like the idea that it was based on like a Greek myth, but I didn't know like what exactly it was, and I'm not super well versed in the Minotaur to begin with, so I really can't remember while I was reading it if I was surprised by there being a monster. I don't think I was. What about you guys? Was there anything that like shocked you, surprised you? Reveals that were good for you?
I liked just the first big reveal of what's going on. I think it's after like 3 days or so of the competition, and then you get Linda's perspective and you see like the cabin in the woods vibes that they're bringing into the story, and that's like one of my favorite horror movies too. So I was like, oh great, we're doing this again. Like I can get behind this. This makes it super interesting. I also didn't know really much about this book going in at all. I tried to avoid everything because I just knew everyone was hating it, so I didn't want to know anything about it. So a lot of it was surprising. Like I don't know if I knew there was going to be a monster or the nature of the monster or if it was going to be supernatural or not. I was just kind of going in with no expectations, just knew it was a hide and seek game.
I think the ending was probably surprising for me too, just because like I obviously didn't know what they were gonna do, and I think it's pretty a bold decision to like let the monster escape rather than like defeat it.
I think it also didn't necessarily make a ton of sense to the rest of the story. That was probably my biggest thing, is that the ending just didn't feel like it needed to do what it needed to do.
It felt very sudden too. Like the whole book is really long and slow of them just hiding. Then they get to the house, and then all of a sudden, boom, here's the ending and what we're doing.
I was fully waiting for them to pin it all on Ava whenever it was revealed that she was not like a family member. Oh. And I was like, oh, they always put one person in as like a decoy, so that when they come out, they're basically like, all this stuff happened. And they're like, no, this person's crazy. Like, you can't believe them. And I was fully waiting for that to happen. So when they were all like, oh, we didn't even realize she wasn't in the family, I was like, oh. I thought there was gonna be more to that, but sure.
So I kept waiting on something more to happen with Mac's dad. Because, you know, the whole thing is like he murdered the whole family. And Mac was connected to this like big cult thing through her mom. So I thought that maybe like her dad had figured out about the cult thing and was trying to kill off the family so that it would like put an end to everything. That was like my theory, and it was obviously not happening because there were not enough pages to, I feel like, reveal a lot of things. Like someone in the comments said something about like the lack of reveal, and I kind of agree with that. I feel like what they tell you is what you're gonna get, and there wasn't a lot of uncovering thing. Like I called everything that happened from the first 50 pages.
Yeah, I think the first 2 days there, I was interested enough, and I was like, okay, we're obviously going to get a lot of good backstory. Her dad's going to come back into it. Like, there's going to be so much. And then once we got to learn about like the origin story of the whole thing, I was like, okay, so like, what's going to happen for 100 more pages? And it wasn't anything that I enjoyed at that point. So.
I think the only thing her backstory really served was so that she could feel guilty the whole time in a hide and seek situation. Like,
and it was just shoved back in your face again and again. Like every time we were with Mac, it's like, don't forget what she did in her past. Don't forget that she feels terrible about what happened to her sister. And it just, I don't know, it felt so like lazy that was just backstory was, let's just keep repeating what happened to her instead of really building upon that and doing something cool, like bringing that back into the story and making that a twist or more of her character arc. That was another thing that I really didn't like about Mac's character is in these survival thrillers. I'm looking for a strong, badass woman to really utilize her backstory, utilize her strength, have a really strong arc, and go defeat the monster. I felt like Ava was a replacement for that. And Ava was the one who was really defeating the monster, getting the troops assembled, figuring out what to do, finding the gun, like hobbling on her bad leg throughout the whole story just to do anything to get through it. So I really like to see that in the main character. And I felt like Mac wasn't strong enough to carry the story.
Oh, they would have been absolutely screwed if Ava wasn't there.
Oh,
I knew when
100%.
they like in a veteran, I was like, well, there we go.
Yep.
This is how they're surviving.
I kind of feel like it's just like the Chekhov's gun thing. Like, you can't introduce a gun in the first act of a play and then not use the gun. You know, I
Yeah.
feel like we got all these guns right away and then just nothing, like, you know, we just didn't do anything with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I did call the Minotaur thing whenever the author character, who annoyed the fuck out of me when he was like, it's so hard to be an author. I was like, okay, honey, I see you projecting. Whenever he was like reading the diary and he was like, oh, it's all Greek to me. And I'm like, okay, they keep talking about how this is a maze. And it's like a man and a woman for like a certain, like 14 people or whatever. Like, okay, this is like a Minotaur sacrifice thing. And you just like, it's all Greek to me line. I put down the book and I was like, okay, fuck this. I need a cigarette or something.
Well, it's all the Greek architecture too that's like thrown in random parts. Like I think there was like a bust or something, and then there was like the columns and whatnot in the main building. So, and I did think that the bringing in the myth was a bit. That was probably, it was the one step too far in the things to include. It's like, okay, now there's a lot.
It's tough because, like, obviously she has written a lot of retellings. Like, that's her whole thing. And so it's interesting, like, the fact that this gets marketed without that being the focus of it. And it's not told as a Minotaur retelling. But I feel like she must have started this book being like, I want to do a Minotaur retelling. And then maybe that's why I got turned into adult, because she couldn't just sell it as, like, a little fantasy retelling.
I think, too, it's not enough of it to really, I feel like, solidify it as a retelling. It's just, like, kind of, like, sprinkled in there enough that you know, like, kind of the general gist. It's a maze, and you're letting a monster out of the maze. But other than that, like, there's not any other really key elements, I feel like, in there to solidify it as that.
I agree with this because I actually had to stop the audiobook. I was enjoying the narration, but, like, I think I was 50 pages in and I was like, I can't keep up with everything because there were way too many characters. I wasn't expecting it. I had no idea, obviously, what I was getting into. So I thought we were just going to have like one perspective and she was going to meet all of these people, but having so many characters and learning their backstory so quickly, it was a lot for me to get through. Okay, I think my last question is, well, I have two questions. Okay, would you read Kirsten White again? And then what else would you recommend if people enjoyed this, or if they didn't enjoy this? What would you recommend is like a better version of this book, I guess? Or any like movie or book recommendations you have?
Well, like I said, Nerve. I think if you're looking for something with a game element, I think Nerve the movie, not so much the book as much.
I like the book.
Of course. But I feel like they're two very different stories, to be fair. Like, it's just the general premise. But I think Nerve, like someone said, The Quiet Place, if you're looking for that, like, invisible horror-esque type thing. Someone was asking for amusement park thrillers. Neil Shusterman has one called Full Tilt. And I feel like no one ever talks about it because it came out forever ago. And it's actually, you can only buy it in, like, mass market paperback. So that was my first ever amusement park love, and I loved it then. And then I think if you're looking for something that's a mystery but is slow paced with generational ties, I've been reading Daughters of the Lake, and it's been really good.
I would read from Kirsten White again. I am just really curious about where she's going to go next, because this felt so different from, I mean, I've only read one other book from her, so it's hard to tell, but it just felt so very different that I'm really interested to see, and especially this being her first adult, is she going to try to do more adult? Is she going to go back to YA? Is she going to lean historical? Is she going to try to be more horror? Just trying to see where she's going, but For other recommendations, if you like this one, I feel like I had more movies that came to my mind than books. So one, The Cabin in the Woods, one of my favorite horror movies, super cheesy, super fun time. The Hunt, which came out in 2020, which is kind of a similar hunting after people, social commentary type story. And Ready or Not, which was a like hide and seek and other games movie where this woman was marrying into this family and they play games on the wedding night, but it quickly turns deadly. So it's pretty similar to this. And then for books, obviously The Island by Adrienne McKenty. I recommend that every chance I can get, but I really like that as a survival thriller story. I think that one does it really well and really lets you get to know the characters and care about them. Some people disagree, but I think it does a really good job of that. And then two books that aren't as good, but I still enjoyed them. And I think if you could like Hide, I think you could enjoy these as well. One being Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. I talked about that earlier, but it was like between a 3 or a 4 for me. It was 4 for enjoyment level, 3 for it being the quality of book that it is. But that one's fun too. It's an island survival book. And then also The Missing by Kirsten Modulin. Also a divisive book, but it's just a cheesy, fun, good time where people go on an island and things start to happen.
Amazing.
So I would say for books, for some reason, like Sadie by Courtney Summers. If you want like the older sister, dead younger sister, getting justice and feeling guilt kind of thing. And then if you want a paranormal horror that also twists the hide and seek trope in like a different way, I would recommend Hide and Seeker by Daka Herman. It's more kind of in line with Stranger Things, like paranormal, middle grade, like alternate dimensions, a demon sort of thing. And then for movies, I would second not Ready Player One, oh God. Ready or Not. Not Ready Player One. Ready or Not, Cabin in the Woods, and Halloween Resurrection, which is like the worst Halloween sequel, but they all think that they're in a reality show while they're getting killed off. So, you know, it's there, but it's like, you know, kind of there.
Okay, you guys listed all of my recommendations. What else can I come up with? I wrote this one down, but I haven't read it. But I've heard that this is, if you're looking for a horror at an amusement park, like this really delivers.
It's on my TBR this month.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Exciting. I keep picking up amusement park thrillers and they're all so terrible. It just keeps happening to me. So I'm not going to mention any of them because they're not worth your time. But I will find some, I think, in the future. I have to because I really like the idea of this trope. I've just never enjoyed one. And I co-sign all of the movies that have just been mentioned. I especially think Cabin in the Woods is a good one. If you somehow haven't seen that by now, it's so good. And then I also, it's not super similar, but Us, the movie, because there's like a little amusement park vibe, and that has like the little House of Mirrors scary moment. I would recommend that one. It's pretty different, but it's got weird vibes. So, okay, this I've seen mentioned in the comments a lot too. So, and also Joyland, which I can't remember if I even enjoyed. I don't think I did, but that's okay.
Yeah, I thought that one was fine, but it's not a horror.
Oh, right. I also think The Hollow Place is a good one for weirdness.
I considered throwing that recommendation out there.
Okay, good. I wasn't totally off base with Us. I was like, is that a good comp for this? I don't know. Okay, that's it. Let me quickly tell you, though, speaking of T. Kingfisher, let me transition into the next book club picks just to remind everybody. For the month of July, we're reading The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Everybody's hating it so far, and I hope that the live show is a good time, and I hope that I enjoy it because my experience with my own book club this year has not been great, but that's okay. Hopefully this one is fantastic, though. This is the August pick, What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. It's short. It's a retelling of an Edgar Allan Poe short story. We're also going to be discussing the short story, The Fall of the House of Usher, in the live show. So if you want to read that, then this, because it's so short, I don't know how much substance there will be in the live show, but that's what's happening. And then for those of you who are here, I'm going to give you the September pick because you're here and I love you so much. We're going to be reading The It Girl by Ruth Ware. So that one I have, but I didn't pull it over here because I just decided I wanted to spoil my book club for you all because I'm not going to put the announcement up until August. But if you're here, you get the early information. So that is it. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Again, all the links I think I put in the description so you can check out everybody's channels. I will also go ahead and add any Twitch links and Patreon links and other things. So if you want to come back, refresh this page in just a minute, those will all be here so you can follow everybody where they exist on the internet. Thank you all for being here, and I'll see you next month for a live show. Bye.
Thank you.